guys, it's the D.D.N.O system, and we got like lighting and a thing. So thank you to my patrons on Patreon, because that's how we got those things, and I'm super excited about it. And now I actually need to learn how to like use these things. But it did get away like the shadow from beside the boy. All right, I'm excited. So I wanted to make a video about friendship, and specifically friendship as a system. I've seen a lot of people just in any community be like, how do you make friends as an adult? Not easily at all, because people have their own lives and their own established whatever. It's really like akin to asking someone on a date, because you are asking like, do you want to be in a relationship with me? Yes, no, maybe. So it's super awkward. And I just had this where when I got my my headshots for my book that's coming out, got March 9th is one of my release dates. I really liked my photographer. I thought she was great. And so a couple weeks later, I was like, hey, you want to have tea sometime and hang out? And I was like, this is the equivalent of being on the playground and being like, do you want to be my friends? So all of that to say, it's awkward. Just period. It will be awkward. But when you add in the dynamic of being a system, it gets even more complicated, because, well, I definitely didn't tell my photographer that I'm a system. That would be an odd thing to put on a new relationship. But, you know, if we become close friends, it's something that might come up. And I found for myself that as I went through my journey in therapy, that I no longer quite fit with a lot of my previous friends. And friendships dropped by the way, which is how life goes. Life is seasons, and everything in life is a season. So nothing is going to be permanent. And if you have the expectation on the outset that it's going to be permanent, there's going to be problems. But I have a theory, and I think I mentioned it in like a previous video, that people form relationships with somebody of an equal but opposing unhealth. So that means that the friendships I formed prior to therapy were formed with this unhealthy balance. So they make a balance, but it's not necessarily the best balance. And what happens is when one of the people starts to get healthy, it shifts the dynamic. So then this doesn't quite work anymore. And that can be really difficult and hard to let go of. I've had to let go of a couple friendships just throughout the course of therapy, not even relating to the system, because as I began to shift, it just didn't work. And opposite that, I've had friends that started their therapy journey around the same time that I did. And we've continued to have a very close relationship, because as I got healthy, they got healthy. And as I was learning how to establish boundaries, so were they. And so they weren't offended when I was like, oh yeah, no, here's a boundary. They were like, oh yeah, I'm learning about that too. That's great. Whereas if you're in a friendship with someone who is still unhealthy and you put up a boundary, they're like, I'm attacked, or I'm not like being helped like I usually am, and I don't know how to deal with this. Which is just because that's the training that they've received. So as I've been in my therapy journey, I've been making new friendships and new connections, and it's been difficult. I've also been making friends with other systems, which I love, because so I was having a conversation with the Alexandrite system. Y'all should check them out. I love them. Anyway, and they mentioned a video they were working on, and I was like, oh, and I asked for more information about that. And they went, oh, you don't hold the memory of that conversation. And I went, oh, oops. Which, when in a friendship with a singlet who doesn't know about my multiplicity, when stuff comes up where you've had like an extended conversation like a few days prior about a certain subject and suddenly you don't remember it anymore, that can be a problem. So having system friends has been uniquely like freeing and things like that, because like they get that. There's not any kind of judgment or thought that you aren't invested in the relationship or the friendship when suddenly you don't remember this thing you just literally talked about. And lost my train of thought, but it'll come back to me. Train will cycle back around. Friendships. Come to me, brain. System friends, memory issue, understanding, trust issues. Oh, one of the difficulties with making system friends, though, is that I haven't met any system that doesn't have trust issues, because that's part of why we're a system in the first place. So going into system spaces, I know ahead of time that if that system hasn't been doing their work in therapy, they might have a lot of unhealthy coping mechanisms, and they'll definitely have trust issues. So I have found that it can be harder to make friendships in multiple spaces, like spaces that multiples are in, just for that reason, because we are all in various stages of healing and learning and trusting. But there's nothing wrong with being where you are in your journey. So as far as making friends with singlets go, I find it's much the same, except for that I think it's the equivalent in a romantic relationship when you're like, so when do I disclose like my sexual history or my relationship past? It's like, so when do I disclose that I'm multiple? Like, it's tricky. It's a tricky balance there. But it's still good, and it's worth the effort, both with singlets and worth the effort with developing friends who are multiple. So for this wonderful rambling video on making friends, key points are, it's gonna be awkward, but you should still do it. And as you make those friends, know that it's all a season, and as you grow and change, they'll grow and change. You might not always connect, but you can enjoy the connection while it's there. Catch you later.